what your ideas and your input is critical to us engineering the system. And I do believe that the last two comments have been highly constructive and frankly, ideas that I don't think have come across the table the way that they were just expressed. As far as the entertainment mecca, which we ought to really have around this county, especially being Los Angeles, those are interesting things. And what I will say, and those of you who have heard me talk about it before, purpose in life is critical. We need people, we need place, and we need purpose. And in many cases, those things are much more important than treatment. And I say that as a psychiatrist and a neurobiologist. So I'm a medical guy, but things like purpose are what bring individuals who are isolated, lost, suffering back into themselves and towards thriving lives. The issue of using the Prop 63 to do messaging and having that messaging expand its scope and deal with traumatizing type issues in our communities is very important. And I think as many of you know who have been engaged in some of this stuff, you've seen the messaging in the airports, on buses, on TV. We also, as many of you know, had a very local engagement effort during May, Mental Health Month, called We Rise. That indicates our investment in this type of effort, but we need to keep it fresh, we need to keep it alive, and we need to go after things very effectively. And I love the idea. So as you're speaking, I'm sitting here talking to Brittany. I'm like, hey, you guys get all these notes, right? Because we need to, and that's why we're here, and I'm taking notes myself. The problem for me is that I spend a lot of my life talking about stuff, although I also do work, and I spend time clinically doing work with people that have serious mental health issues and addictions in the street. And I don't want to sit here and talk all the time, but I do, if I might, just make a couple of comments regarding the first issue that was raised. You don't have to look very far to find people who are homeless. We have an epidemic in Los Angeles County, in other parts of the state, and frankly, around the country. And there's a lot of reasons for it. And I really don't want people to conflate being homeless with being mentally ill. So I'm assuming that that's not part of the message. And on that note, I want to say that the homeless population is a complex population. People become homeless for so many different reasons. And we need to figure out how to identify what those different reasons are and intervene when we can and provide services and obviously housing, but also opportunities for people to move forward in their lives. For those of you who follow what the county does, and I'm sorry this is going to take a little while, I just want to get this out. Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
This county is investing a lot of money in its efforts to deal with homelessness. I believe if you look at all the money that we're spending, it's well over $1 billion per year. And I expect that to rise because the demands of our population compel us to continue to invest. Are we investing well? I think some of the things we're doing are really working out quite nicely. If you, again, pay attention to the numbers in the LAHSA, 22,000 people were housed last year, in 1 year. That's unprecedented. That hasn't happened anywhere, certainly in this country. But at the same time, we lost ground. In other words, we went from around low 50s to high 50s of thousands of people who are homeless at the same time that we're investing huge amounts of funding, lots of political capital, and serious systems effort. And I think the message there is that we have to figure out how to be more strategic, and I would suggest that preventing homelessness is a part of that. So I have suggested to the Board of Supervisors that housing stability be considered a vital sign. When someone comes in with a blood pressure of 200 over 120, we do something. And when someone comes in and their housing is not stable or they're homeless, we have to go after it. Because we can't keep having people becoming homeless. And we also need to think about things like subsidized employment. Because people who are employed can't pay their rent. But maybe we can subsidize them so that they can stay in their housing and keep working. We also need to think about the issues of NIMBY. And when I say YIMBY. So NIMBY, not in my backyard, is a plague, and it flies in the face of everything that Supervisor Solis talked about, and all that I talk about, which is connected communities where everybody belongs, and that where it is inclusive. Because those are our neighbors that are around the corner. And I would suggest that if you don't want people in your backyard that are homeless, then maybe you ought to pay a special tax. And if you're willing in your community to have people, that's the YIMBY, then you ought to get a tax break. These are the kinds of things that I think we need to be playing with, pushing local and state to change the dynamic, because we're failing. I will also tell you that it's more than just housing. I've talked about that, and it's more than just permanent supportive housing and new developments. For those of you who are following the board and care disintegration that's happening before our eyes because it's a broken business model, some of us, including this commission and myself and the Board of Supervisors and certain legislators and other counties are trying to get the state to recognize that we have to save the boarding care networks because we're losing boarding care beds faster than we can build new permanent supportive housing. And when you lose a bed in a boarding care, you don't just lose the bed, you lose the site. People are selling these facilities to make money because the land is so valuable. That's gold. We're losing gold when we lose the site because we can't site things. And they're embedded in the community. So they're already integrated into the community. We have to go after that, and we're going after it. We're also doing things like looking at how monies like No Place Like Home can be used. And can they be used not just for new development, for rescuing and improving and expanding our existing infrastructure. I also will tell you that a big part of the problem, and my focus and my role, is not on every homeless person. My focus is on people who are homeless that have serious mental illness and or addictions, and that's driving a lot of the reason why they're in the street and why they're getting kind of, at times, put into jail because they're sick. That's unconscionable. So with respect to your question about homeless people, it's a complicated question. It's a complicated answer. This is a mental health commission meeting, and I'm trying to focus our resources, our efforts on people who are suffering from mental illness, from addictions, who are homeless in many ways because of their condition, which is not, again, going back to my initial point, every homeless person.
True. Well said.
Next question. So just a reminder, if you do have a question, if you can raise your hand, and somebody will come and walk over to you with a microphone.
Good evening, Good evening, Mental Health Commission. My name is Anna. I am a Royal Family Mental Health Center community leader and proud parent of my amazing daughter that happens to be transgender. Growing up, she faced a lot of bullying and harassment from K to 12th grade. The first time she talked about wanting to die, she was only 10 years old. She started to develop severe anxiety and depression when she was 16 years old, right after she tried to come out to her father as being gay. His response was, gay people are disgusting and are going to hell. according to his religious beliefs. I was always trying very hard to support my child and was always there for her. She went on to graduate from high school and she got admitted to Columbia University where she graduated class of 2017. I was also impacted with anxiety and depression because I was so scared to lose my child to violence and self-harm, and I'm still scared today. I am asking Mental Health Commission to increase mental health services tailored to unique needs of those who identify as LGBTQ in Service Area 7. Thank you.
Now, if possible, we want to take a quick 1-minute break. We want to give some awards out that we forgot to do earlier. So I apologize. Rick, my lovely co-chair, can you come up here, please?
Forgive us, ladies and gentlemen, just a quick one here. On behalf of the Department of Mental Health, SAC 7, we'd like to bring up Abraham Sabi, the Vice Principal for Garfield High School. His boss, Andres Favela, Garfield High School. A big hand for you gentlemen. And Favela's boss, the Honorable Board Member, Monica Garcia. She's not here tonight, but on her behalf. So thank you, gentlemen, for bringing us this beautiful facility, and we look forward to working with you and your mental health programs here at the students and members. So God bless you, and on behalf of the SAC 7, si se puede. Gracias.
Just wanted to welcome everybody to our beautiful school and wonderful auditorium. And of course, we're always open to events like these, so please consider us in the future. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Principal and Vice Principal, for coming up here. Now we're going to continue with the questions from our audience members.
I do want to add, one of the topics that was brought up in regards to the LGBTQ2S+ community. I do want to extend that invitation to our SAC 7 meeting. We do have resources in the community, such as the Penny Lane Drop-In Center in Commerce that services transition-age youth who identify as LGBTQ. So we definitely invite you to come out and to learn about those resources, about what's available in the area. So again, just raise your hand and somebody will come over with the microphone.
Okay, so I want to explain to you all how we're going to do this because this room is so large and we want to get all of your questions and concerns. Moving forward, I'm going to take 3 on this side and then we do 3 on that side and we'll go back and forth. I see your hands, we're all over it. We will get to you as soon as we can, okay? Thank you for your patience.
Good evening, Garfield, commissioners. My name is Juliano Jarquin. I'm a past educator in the UC system and Cal State system, first responder working with FEMA on compassion fatigue. I'm understanding that there's a lot of divisions or sections area. I being from Pangea, one continent, one everything, and living in the city of Southgate, within 5 minutes, I'm already traveling within 6 cities, trying to understand the need of complexity of communication between the areas on mental health, on a bigger scope. And that's something I barely learned of the meeting today at 3, so I dropped everything to come. Very much interested on having common conversations on a regular basis to have statistical data or targets that affect public health, that affect safety, that affect first responders. Talking from a mental health aspect and diagnosis with computer systems, I'm not sure how public safety or first responders are managing that with the diagnoses of patients. So I'm looking at understanding the system and the complexity of it. Healthcare as a whole is very difficult, but then when you go into mental health, it's even that much more complex. So trying to understand what areas are we focusing on and would love to participate. We're a nonprofit. I left UCLA to manage some of the regions of the Cella region from Vernon to Signal Hill. So we're collaborating, but trying to understand how we have common conversations, common targets, and common outcomes. So thank you all for being here. Muy importante, mental health, and it's a topic that it's difficult to speak of con Latinos, Hispanos. You know, we're doing it through food, we're doing it through drum circles, we're doing it through gritos, but trying to understand how can we go to the core addressing the cognitive behavioral need. Would love to learn how that is. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lily Garcia, and I spoke at LA Trade Tech. I want to say good evening, Dr. Sharon and DMH commissioners. I want to ask a question because I'm staying at a shelter called LA Family Housing in North Hollywood, and we have some people there among the vast population of homeless people that are suffering with a dual diagnosis of substance abuse and also mental illness. I was reading an article recently that talks about in Alaska at the correctional facilities where they have Vivitrol, and they administer that to the inmates that are being released to help them with their opioid addiction, to help them for like the first 30 days and ongoing every month thereafter for the next couple of years. Where are we at in California with that, and is that something that can be administered and utilized at the shelters? You know, for example, those of us that are staying at the shelters, we're dealing with these people, our fellow residents, participants that stay there, and we see them battling and failing many times and relapsing from their opioid addiction. So I wanted to ask, where are we at in California with Vivitrol shots being administered to folks there at the shelters? And also, I'm asking, and I'm reaching out again to mention that we're not being housed at LA Family Housing in North Hollywood, Bridge Housing. And that's a concern because I have my Section 8 voucher with HACLA, and they're not taking us out to find rentals. We're just dead in the water. The last thing I want to say is I want to give outstanding recognition to one of the DMH commissioners named Ms. Reba Stevens. Very proud of her for her exceptional work. Thank you, Ms. Reba. We love you. Thank you, Dr. Sharon.
Thank you. And here we have another question.
I could just respond real quick. I mean, I've heard complaints about a number of different places that are providing services, including some of the stuff that you're saying. I do follow up. And, the particular provider, we have gone, staff's gone to discuss this matter with them, and it sounds to me like you're reporting that that hasn't gone well, and we will go back and follow up again. And the commission has the pleasure of holding me accountable when I say things like this, which is why I do it, and I do it actually more importantly because it's the right thing to do. Vivitrol is a medication that we have at our clinics. One of the things we're trying to figure out as a county and as health departments is how do we deliver services in shelters. We do it in permanent supportive housing, in what we call project-based housing, but we don't do it in shelters. And I'll be honest with you, we're struggling with the legality of delivering clinical services in interim housing settings, and we're going to try to find out if we can. But regardless, what I would like to see is that people who are in shelters, interim housing, are aware of the fact that Vivitrol is available and that we, along with other medications, can provide it.
Thank you, Dr. Sharon. Next question.
I have a hearing problem to some degree, so I'm doing bits and pieces. But I want to say, we're talking about this particular community, East LA. So the thoughts that have come through my mind are, the thoughts that have come through my mind, the thoughts that have come through my mind for this particular community, it might sound too simple, but you have to start at a simple level. but I've had in my mind for a number of years to build a large edifice on Olympic Boulevard where the homeless can go there in the evening hours, and it would be simple. Cots, showers, basic food like in the morning, coffee and oatmeal. And if they would have in-house people, mental health counselor, and just different types of counselors. I've talked with an Alzheimer's organization, and they said people are coming in as young as in their 20s, and they don't even know the simplest of things because of the drug. It's a problem, it's really a problem. But their minds have already snapped, crackled, and popped because of their drug problem. But I think as far as mental health, because I used to work for mental health for many years, the things that affect the mental health are, I've seen, alcoholism, and today it's methamphetamine, which is pretty heavy in this area and east. So what I'm saying is, I know it's gonna take funding, but if they would start with a shelter for this area, East LA, for the residents here, because each community has to do for their own, and it's a way of beginning to get a grip on the homeless and then find out why they have mental health issues. And I'm sure with counselors asking them questions while they're in-house, it would start some kind of a registry of keeping track of who's crazy and who isn't, okay? Basically speaking. Some people are just opportunists. They don't want to work and stuff like that. And they like homelessness because it gives them a sense of freedom. They don't have to answer to anybody. But then there's other people that really are nuts out there. And that's due to alcoholism and methamphetamine that I've seen because I live in this community. So homelessness to me is a choice. That's the way I see homelessness. But for those who already have messed themselves up mentally, then this shelter could help them to recover and somehow, some way, start forming a registry of these people who really do have mental issues, because they don't all have mental issues. They just want to be like that, okay? That's where the counselors are going to have to come in. And a lot of these people that are mental, they already fit into the Alzheimer's frame, if you will, because they've lost their mental capacity already. So that makes them mental health.
Thank you. Forgive me for interrupting. I'm just mindful that there are a lot of public comments lining up. And if you don't mind, I'd like to move to another public comment.
I've never done this before, so I want it to be done. Basically, the bottom line is consider large shelter. Olympic Boulevard is pretty void of homes where it could be built for this community, for the homeless in this community.
Thank you.
And I guess, yes, like I thought I heard this gentleman say, you know, the funding would have to come maybe through taxes or whatever. Like in Pico Rivera, their taxes are very high over there.
Thank you.
In other communities, they're not.
Forgive me. Thank you very much for your comment.
Okay,
And just a brief reminder that we can keep the comments brief because we have a lot of people who want to share.
right, and so now we're gonna move to the other side. I see all the hands here. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna take 3 questions there, and then we have several cards we're gonna read, and then we're gonna do 3 more over here. So I see all of you here. So just so you all are aware, we see you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Romana Barajas. I'm a mother and grandmother, especially kids.
I'm also a NAMI basic trainer and CIT trainer. And I'm also an agency provider. And I think that we really seriously need to work in collaboration and not to forget the children, because the children are the adults that are going to end it. And not all people that have mental illness chose it, they were born with it. And for example, collaboration and more training for police officers. We have a lot of times that we need assistance to hospitalize our children. And instead of getting assistance, we get judged by their behaviors and say we are the bad parents and they leave us with the situation instead of recognizing mental illness. Working with our shelters that, ostracize and isolate families. So if you have a 14-year-old male, cannot stay with their family in a shelter because he's 14 and he's a male. We need to change that. We need to work with the city in housing. They're allowing big, gigantic complexes to be built for gentrification purposes with the thing that they're offering affordable housing. Affordable housing requires income. That's not low-income housing. We have to identify low-income housing and to raise it up to at least 25%, not 10%. A lot of identification and working in the schools. A lot of these kids that turn to be gang members are kids that had ADHD, that were always in trouble, that were never accepted, and the only people that would accept them are the gangs, and then they go into the gangs, and then they find out, oh my God, what did I get into? And it's already too late. We need collaboration from all systems, and it has to also begin with our kids in the school and the community. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to thank everyone that came out tonight. I'd like to start first by saying that, in my last 15 years of being involved in various ways with DMH agencies, I've seen a lot of progress. The MHSA's FSP programs, peer-run wellness centers, the peer certification program that's starting, these are all huge steps in the right direction and moving us great leaps forward. The Mind Matters campaigns, the We Rise month, anti-stigma focus, the promotion of the recovery model. These have all set great examples for not only our clients, our family members, but our staff and providers and clinicians at our DMH directly operated and contracted agencies. But I feel that DMH still has a long road ahead to really practice what we preach. And I'm not here today to criticize DMH, our members of the commission, Dr. Sharon, or any of the great work that we're doing and have been doing. But I am here to say that when we're handing out green ribbons and proudly sharing that the agency or SPA has a recovery event, or sharing that DMH practices trauma-informed care, or we have a focus on a certain EBP model that is shown to help clients with trauma, we need to live that in the way we actually provide these services. So let's talk about what a client sees when they walk through the doors of a directly operated DMH agency. First, they walk through 2 armed guards, 1 or 2, not employed by DMH, not experienced with trauma-informed care. They're contracted out. They have weapons in full view of the clients and their caregivers and family members. Then, the clients are asked to empty their pockets and either be wanded or walk through metal detectors. Then, they sit in the lobby. So then, depending on the site and the site's layout, they'll walk up to the plexiglass windows and sit in the waiting room. And depending on the site, it may be a nice experience, it may have a clean area, it may have new magazines, it may have nothing. And then now, when they meet with their psychiatrist for their roughly 5 to 15-minute appointment, they're meeting with someone who hasn't had a chance to really review their chart, and most likely they're going to leave that day with a medication prescription that they may or may not be familiar with, that may or may not be right for them, and it just really is something where the psychiatrist, the provider, hasn't gotten to really understand what the client's needs are at that point in time, assuming it's the first time they've seen the client, or they're not being referred. The therapist are being pressured to complete assessments and provide a Medi-Cal reimbursable diagnosis within the first or second session. That's because using the model that DMH embraces, pushed down from the state by Medi-Cal, that's what's needed to bill. And ultimately, that is the focus. The focus is on the Medi-Cal reimbursable model where you need the diagnosis to provide services. Granted, there's some exceptions like community outreach and some other, indigent funding, but for the most part, we're talking about Medi-Cal funded programs.
Thank you.
If I could just have one more minute, please.
Okay, so
This is very important. But this isn't the worst part. The way all of these contract agencies like Pacific Clinics and Telecare and all of them, I'm not calling them out, but those are some of the biggest ones we know, the way they get their contracts is not by sharing about the great treatment goals or recovery model their agency is providing. It's by showing DMH how much they billed the previous year. That's what renews contracts. It's not talking to clients and saying, hey, did you go back to school? Did you feel respected by your agency? Which they may have, they very well may have. But ultimately, what DMH is asking for on a monthly basis is, how many minutes of service did you provide? And if they provided that,
Sir,
they will be...
Thank you for your public comment. I do want to just let you know that this is not the only time for any of us here to listen and hear from you, and that you are very welcome at all of the public meetings in LA County, including regularly occurring mental health commission meetings. For November and December, we have commission meetings on odd days. They are going to be the third Thursday of the month, so we have one on November 21 and then on December 19th. They both start at 11 a.m. and they're both being held at the Peer Resource Center at DMH headquarters, right on Vermont. So please do not think of this as your last chance to talk with us. We always welcome public comment during those events as well, and we want to be sure to share the time today.
I'll try to keep it short. I appreciate your input. And I think for the most part, what you're saying is accurate and is a part of the problem. I'm trying, and many other people are trying to reform the system. Where'd you go? I don't see you. There you are. So I'm looking at you, and I hear you, and I'll tell you that one of the biggest problems is our funding model. And I have to say that I get extremely exercised in Sacramento and in DC about billable services as opposed to taking care of human beings and being present with someone who has needs and being accountable to them doing better around things like having people, place, and purpose in their lives, as opposed to taking care of medical charts and the auditor. So I'd like you to know that that's happening. I'd also like you to know that this county and many other counties across the state do the same thing and have lived in that culture that you described, which is really, again, driven by the federal government and Medicaid. I do take issue with you describing the way that we contract and what we do with our contractors, because frankly, I don't think it's accurate. And I'll also let you know that our goal is to create accountability to outcomes and to support our contractors for getting outcomes just like we do our own clinics. And that's the direction that the state is starting to move, because there's new waivers. The 1115 and 1915B waivers are being renewed in 2020, and we're trying to frame them around flexibility in funding and accountability to outcomes, which I think is a lot of what you're saying. With respect to the facilities and the concerns about safety and the lack of a welcoming environment, big issues. Trying to go after them, they're cultural. They're also based on the fact that we do have a history sometime of bad outcomes. We do live in an environment where we have government employees, where we have unions. And so it's not so simple. Do I like that there's armed guards at our clinics? Heck no, I don't. And I tell everybody that I don't. And I tell them that we need to figure out how to be on equal ground as people with those who are coming to see us. And that psychiatrists need more than 10 minutes to get to know a new case. They need time to review the chart. They need to make sure that medications aren't being delivered by multiple providers at the same time. But at the same time, we don't have electronic charts that communicate with other departments, with other providers. So I appreciate everything that you're saying. I would suggest that a lot of the things you're saying are things that I'm laser focused on. But I also would suggest that you be really thoughtful about some of the things you're saying, because they're actually not entirely accurate. And I'd be more than happy to talk to you or anybody else about these things which require a lot of attention. I go to the Peer Resource Center, and I meet with people that want to come in and talk to me. I take office hours.
Thank you, Dr. Sharon. We have a question here. Destiny, before the question begins, I just wanted to reiterate, the point of our meeting today is to collect all of the input on the various subjects, things that really feel successful to you, things that feel awkward or need improvement. And the comments that you state, they're not just being written down on paper, but they're being recorded audio for our posterity, so that it informs the kind of questions we ask as commissioners overseeing the work and participating in the public process with you. So be sure that we are listening and we hear every one of you. Thank you.
So, sorry, I just want to remind you, if we can keep the comments for about 1 minute to 2 minutes at max, just so we can make sure that we get as many people in the room heard and really have their voice raised.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Teresa Amador y vengo de Health Mental Rio Hondo.
I come from Health Mental Rio Hondo and my name is Teresa Amador.
Bueno, yo quiero dar un testimonio de mi hijo Aníbal.
My son Aníbal, I want to give some testimony on his behalf.
Bueno, cuando estaba chiquito, yo lo había perdido por 8 años.
When he was just a little boy, I had lost him for about 8 years.
Cuando llegué,
when I arrived,
en Kaiser tenían todo listo para meterlo de por vida al hospital.
They had everything ready for him so that he could live for the rest of his life in Kaiser.
¿Con qué medicinas iba a curar si habían probado todos los medicamentos?
With what medicine were they going to cure him if they had already tried every medicine available?
Bueno, pues aquí voy a decir algo, ¿verdad? Dicen que no sé qué espiritualidad. Bueno,
well, you know, it's spirituality. I'm going to say that right here, right now.
Entonces a él lo pasaron para acá, ahí fue cuando lo pasaron para acá, para Río Hondo.
That's when he was sent to Rio Hondo.
Y yo, ¿verdad? También yo no sabía que yo estaba enferma.
I also didn't know that I was ill.
Pero también pasé una crisis muy fuerte.
But I went through a very bad crisis period.
Bueno, pero él por su esquizofrenia,
but because of his schizophrenia,
estuvo a punto de matarme 2 veces.
He almost killed me twice.
Entonces cuando yo me enfermé también fue una crisis muy fuerte.
So when I got ill, as I said, it was a very huge, serious crisis.
A donde los doctores no querían ya no quisieron poner las manos sobre mí.
And then the doctors no longer wanted to touch me.
Así que yo tomé pastillas para matarme.
So I took pills to take my life.
Estuve 36 horas muerta en coma.
I was in a coma for 36 hours. I was dead.
Y así que estábamos los dos enfermos.
So both of us are laying there sick.
Pero yo decía, él me dio fuerzas.
But I said, he gave me the strength.
Porque decía yo, si él cae,
because I would say, if he falls,
yo también caigo.
I will as well.
Entonces aquí, ¿verdad? Gracias a Dios, los dos nos levantamos.
So thank God, both of us have elevated ourselves.
Y pues quiero darle gracias primeramente al doctor Julio Celada.
I want to thank Dr. Julio Celada, most over.
Y pues a Dios y los grupos de apoyo.
And the support groups.
Y pues hay que trabajar para la comunidad, ¿verdad?
You have to work for the community, right?
Ya que yo pues ando trabajando, ¿verdad? Yo ando dando recados de aquí de la clínica, compartiéndoles a la gente que sí se puede salir adelante. Y aquí está mi hijo Aníbal Amador.
This is my son Aníbal Amador, and I spend time going through my community telling them not to lose hope.
Callada, ¿verdad?
Hello, everybody, and Hannibal. Life is hard, but if you motivate yourself, This article, you know, it works out like right now. I'm finishing my college and doing everything good. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so Tracy, get the 3 on the side and then we'll go to the questions here, and then after the comments at the podium. Thank you, because I was really stuck. We have 2 speeches that were supposed to happen before all of this happened, so I would like to give them an opportunity to speak as well, okay? Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Alma Rivas. Actualmente mi hija de 9 años recibe servicios de la clínica Roybal. De esto ya tenemos 2 años. También soy participante del programa de bienestar social que se implementa dentro de la escuela Malabar, en la elemental que van mis hijos. Esto me ha...
So my 9-year-old daughter is receiving services. Her name's Alma.
Mi hija recibe actualmente servicios de Roybal.
My daughter's getting the services from Roybal.
Desde hace 2 años.
For 2 years now.
También soy participante del programa de bienestar social.
I also participate in the Bienestar Social program.
Este programa se implementa dentro de nuestra escuela elemental Malabar.
And this is implemented in Malabar Elementary School.
Esto me ha enseñado y me ha educado un poco más a entender la salud mental.
This has taught me a lot, and it's taught me to understand more about what mental health is.
Como madre veo la necesidad de tener dentro de nuestra comunidad un centro de salud mental de emergencia.
As a mother, I can see the great need of having an emergency mental health center within the school.
También tenemos la necesidad de tener una oficina administrativa dentro de nuestra área. No tenemos por qué ir hasta el centro a expresar nuestras preocupaciones y necesidades.
Not only within the school, but in our area, because we don't need to go all the way downtown every time we need to express what we need, how we feel. There needs to be something local.
Como madre de mi niña diagnosticada con ansiedad y depresión, esto me ha hecho enfocarme.
As a mother of a daughter who has anxiety and depression issues, this has caused me to laser focus on
dentro de la escuela de mis hijos,
my children's school.
Y ahí veo la necesidad de que son muchos nuestros niños.
And that's where I see the need. There are a great deal of children
que requieren el servicio de salud mental.
That require mental health services.
Nuestra escuela representa el primer lugar en intentos de suicidio.
Our school has won first place in children trying to commit suicide.
Dentro del este de Los Ángeles.
Within East Los Angeles.
Solo una agencia es la que presta sus servicios dentro de esta escuela.
A single agency gives us services at this school.
Que es Alma. Para poder ingresar y tener servicios con esta agencia, hay una lista de espera.
There's a huge wait list so that we can use the services of Alma.
Que nos puede llevar hasta más de un año.
It could take longer than a year.
Yo como madre pienso que esto es injusto.
As a mother, I think this is unfair.
Para que nuestros niños de 9, 10, 11 años,
our 9, 10 to 11-year-olds,
reciban ayuda.
Need the help.
Es por eso que a ustedes les pido que volteen a ver esas escuelas elementales.
I'm asking you please to look at these elementary schools.
Que es donde muchos niños necesitan nuestra ayuda.
Great many kids need our help there.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Sharon and DMH commissioners. I'm John Velasco. I'm with Heart of Compassion, which is a food bank and social service agency in Montebello. One area that I wanted to make sure you guys are aware of, we are partnering right now with the fire department in Montebello to, instead of have a pet team as normal with law enforcement, mental health professional, and caseworker, we're going with paramedics who are firemen, not carrying a weapon, are able to triage along with the caseworker and the mental health professional The City of Pasadena Fire Department has been doing this for about 23 months now, and that's the model. Secondly, I just want to comment that Dr. Sharon, you talked about those that are very seriously mentally ill. We encounter a lot of those people that they're so far gone in mental illness that they really can't make a wise decision on how to spend their life. But because of the legal term self-determination, they're allowed to do whatever. If I'm a senior and somebody's misusing my finances, the county appoints a conservatorship. I really think that we need to start having mental health conservators and not institutionalizing people, but maybe getting them into group homes where they can live but still get the mental care that they need. Thank you.
Alright, so before I begin, I would like to hear from more than the same two people I've heard since the beginning. So my name is Evelyn Madrigal, and I am speaking on behalf of Roybal Community Wellbeing Program and the YMCA Youth and Government. Speaking from personal experience and having to deal with bullying on a daily basis throughout high school and as a survivor of attempted suicide, I can say that there are many TAY students who are struggling with homelessness, domestic violence, substance abuse, mental illnesses, and yet these wellness centers that are in schools are lacking in resources, such as drop-in centers that can help students through their difficult times. Now, my two-part question is, why are resources for mental health not available at all high schools? Many schools claim to have these resources, yet they don't. In what ways can you assist to make that change?
Forgive me, but I heard that you wanted somebody else to talk or respond. I didn't get the first part of your question. Were you asking us to not respond?
I would just like to hear for more than the same 2-3 people that I've heard. So for more than one to speak.
Okay.
We would just like to offer a reminder. The commissioners will not be responding to the comments that are made, but what they will do is they'll take the comments and the questions that are raised and then offer the responses to the SAC, which is a Service Area 7 Advisory Committee, and provide those responses. Additionally, there are representatives that if you want to have a direct conversation about some of your concerns, we definitely don't want you to leave here with that problem raised and not have that help. So there are DMH staff and representatives who can also help you and link you to some resources at the end of this.
And I've already created a very short list that I've asked Dr. Sharon to maybe speak to before tonight wraps up. And the two things on it so far are school mental health and also LPS audit or the 5150 code in California.
Okay, so we're ready to read the cards. We have a lot of people in the audience who would like the cards read. So can we move forward with that, please? Thank you.
Ashley's going to do her best to try to read all of the cards. We really appreciate the great response we've received. So many stacks of cards up here. I don't know if we'll be able to get through all of them, but this is a good opportunity to definitely encourage you guys to come out to our SAC meeting, talk about these issues, bring them up. Let me read you the address to where we're actually at. We're at Bienvenidos in the City of Commerce, and that's at 5400 Olympic Boulevard in the City of Commerce. And again, we encourage everyone in the community, anyone here whose comment isn't read tonight, we really apologize, but please come out to our meeting, and we'll be glad to have conversations with you about anything else we can do to improve the system. 10 o'clock on the second Friday. Thank you.
So one of those comment cards is from an East LA parent. As a mother of a homeless heroin addict, I speak out of experience. There are no programs to help. Starting from youth to adult, we need prevention, intervention, and general programs. Too many cutbacks, Medi-Cal doesn't cover medication, therefore they seek self-medication. Start early in elementary because they see their parents go through mental health concerns and then face them themselves. Another comment card from Ezekiel Ordaz. I'm sorry if I messed up some of your names. Not so much a question, but a comment. Born and raised in the East Los Angeles area, I wanted to bring myself to encourage community involvement. I had to see that homelessness, mental health, and substance use are all connected. Programs that deal with substance use should be priority. Red tape should be minimized, or programs should be prioritized. We need more collaboration between the East LA Sheriff's Department and the mental health agencies of parents of children 6 to 18. We also need more mental health training for officers to understand how to respond, how to be non-judgmental towards parent and collaborators when hospitalization is needed. Can we start having promotoras from DMH in each community clinic, school district, senior center, churches, etc., to provide a listening, empathetic, compassionate ear for those that need early intervention and that are not open to go to mental health clinic initially? Thank you. SAC 7 health job fairs are working in the entry level. Being that our largest population of mentally ill individuals are in prison, what is being done to help them before and after they are incarcerated? Jobs, I believe this is jobs are needed, for peers and training for peers. SAC 7 is beginning to do this. So, do the commissioners realize the message it sends to both clients and staff when there are armed guards and metal detectors at the entrance of all directly operated DMH sites? Does the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health commissioners realize that Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health renewing and granting agency contracts based on previous year's minutes billed? I believe this might have been brought up. This had led to providers focusing on productivity over quality of care and client treatment goals. What is going to be done about the implementation of the CES, I believe, and its implications in providing services, housing, especially, and preventing disenfranchising of people? What if they refuse help? Are people trained to deal with mental health rather than shooting someone having an episode? Do we tell all that they are mental? As a current college student, we do not have mental health emergency services on campus. I believe it is important to have and provide these services on campus, not just for students, but for faculty as well. As a student trying to invest in my future, I need access to a type of service, and not just me, but everyone invest in students' future with these services. Thank you for the Peer Job Resource Center coming to SAC 7. Why is client satisfaction and evaluation service not used for evaluation of agency success? Why is client satisfaction and treatment goal achievement completely removed from the decision to renew or grant agency contracts? What is being done to implement value-based care reimbursement today? And then we have another comment about the film center or entertainment. Thank you all. We greatly appreciate being able to provide comment. I'm a psychologist, sorry. Some of the writing I may mess up on. At headquarters, I really have an ongoing need for licensed clinical psychologists to provide full-time clinical services in K-12 schools, public schools. Having academic, having school psychologists is inadequate care. Sorry, some of the writing is a little bit blurry. The need for clinical psychologists in schools is a high priority for youth. I would like to request more support for intervention, re-entry, and intervention crisis response. Also, the diversion monies allocated need to not be dependent on sheriff support, because currently East LA has no access to diversion services for our youth because the sheriffs refuse to participate, and that is unfair to East LA. So I think I'm going to stop right here so that we can get to more questions. We do have a few comment cards. If we don't get the opportunity to read your comment card, I just want to let everyone know that they are still going to go to the commissioners and we'll do our best to respond.
We actually wanted to allocate some time to people who had prepared some speeches, if that's okay with everybody. Yes? So, the individuals with the prepared speeches, would you raise your hands? Do you guys want to come up to the podium? Yes? Yes, please.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time for this, and I apologize, I have to drag along my emotional baggage with me. And thank you for being here in Garfield High School, which is the home of Jaime Alfonso Escalante Gutierrez, who the movie Stand and Deliver, that was such an inspiration. I have two family members who are engineers, very proud of that. And I also let me take this off because this is what I would call my chain of shame, and my story is going to be just words, but these are words that are very personal and unfortunately have affected my life, but it's easier for me to just use the words. And I'll use them and then I'll switch out to something else, and I apologize. Depression, anxiety, cancer, poverty, divorce, abuse, unworthy, rape, betrayal, victim, deception, shame. So I've learned to change the dialogue of my inner self, and it hasn't been easy. And I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and my dialogue changed because I met a wonderful group of support women and with Bible study. So my words changed, and this is what has helped me. So has my group at Rio Hondo Mental Health Center. So these are different words. Now my words are hope, love, strength, courage, fight, unite, God, peace, worthy, value, trust, powerful. Okay. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry I'm talking too fast. I know we're on time limit here. So I'm going to read a poem that greatly impacted my life that I got to read at the California Endowment Center in 2017 with Dr. Julio Salada for the Latino Through the Arts for Mental Health. And thank you to Dr. Julio Salada and everybody at Rio Hondo Mental Health Center, the staff, my people there, my peers, and here it is. The poem is what the body screams, what the mouth shuts, and it's by Dr. Nelson Torres, a psychiatrist, expert in psychoneuroimmunologist from Venezuela. And psychoneuroimmunology is the study of the effect of the mind on the health and resistance to disease. Sorry, I'm going to try to do this real fast. Okay, so disease is a conflict between personality and soul. Dr. Everett Bach, 1930. Often a cold allows us to drip when the body does not cry. A sore throat clogs the passage to words when it is not possible to communicate afflictions. The stomach burns when rage cannot get out. Diabetes invades when loneliness hurts. The body fattens when pressed with dissatisfaction. Headache depresses when doubts increase. The heart loosens when the meaning of life seems to end. Allergies occur when perfectionism is intolerable. Nails break when defenses are threatened. The chest tightens when pride enslaves. The pressure rises when fear imprisons. Neurosis paralyzes when the inner child is bullied. Fever heats up when the defenses explode the border of immunity. Knees hurt when your pride will not bow. sorry. Cancer kills you when you get tired of living, and that was my biggest fear. And the fact that I'm here and alive today and I'm striving is because of the support of everybody else, because in 2015 there was no hair on this, I was bald and I was struggling, and thank you to everybody at Rio Hondo that helped me. And here's the question I do have for you. And your silent pains, how do they speak in your body? Sickness is not a terrible setback, but on the contrary, a gift. It warns you that you're mistaken on the way. The road to happiness is not straight. There exist curves called mistakes. There exist street lights called friends, caution lights called family, and everything is possible if you have a spare tire called decision, a potent engine called love, good insurance called faith, abundant gas called patience, but above else, expert conductor called God. And thank you very much, and I apologize. I said I promised it would only be 3 minutes. And thank you to the Department of Mental Health and everybody. I'm taking a class on leadership, and hopefully I might be one of your promotoras. Thank you. And there's one of my greatest inspirations, Teresita. Thank you, and God bless you all.
That was wonderful. Thank you
very much.
Wonderful.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Gabriela y represento a los padres del Roy Was School-Based Program.
Good evening, my name is Gabriela and I represent the parents of the school-based program, Roy Ball.
Nuestro tema es salud mental dentro del sistema educativo.
We're talking about mental health in the educational system.
Actualmente estamos en la necesidad de entrenamiento de salud mental para los educadores y administradores escolares.
Currently, we need training for the educators and the administrators in the LAUSD.
El propósito es aumentar conciencia de educación de salud mental para mejorar el apoyo a los estudiantes.
The purpose is to increase the understanding that they will have regarding mental health for our students.
Con necesidades de salud mental.
For those who have this mental health needs.
De kinder al 12 grado.
From kinder to 12th grade.
Queremos que las evaluaciones del IEP puedan ser más accesibles para estos estudiantes.
We want the IEP evaluations to be more accessible for these students. ¿A qué se refiere más accesible? ¿A qué se refiere más accesible?
Que nos los puedan facilitar más a nosotros los padres, que no nos den largas, que no nos hagan esperar tanto cuando nuestros hijos realmente ocupan esa ayuda y necesitamos que los maestros tengan más conciencia de que nuestros hijos no son flojos y no son problemáticos, simplemente tienen una necesidad.
What do I mean by that? No, what I mean is that we need those IEPs to come sooner. We need to not have such a long lag period between the time that we need it. These kids need their IEPs and they need to be facilitated to the parents when needed.
En mi experiencia, mi hijo recibió la ayuda requerida hasta el 10 grado.
My kid, I'm sorry, in my experience, got what he needed up until the 10th grade.
Cuando él presentó las necesidades desde el kinder.
When he was showing the needs all the way from kindergarten, he didn't get it till he was 10 years old.
La falta de conciencia de los maestros lo afectó en su vida escolar.
The lack of understanding from these teachers affected his entire school life.
Y muchas veces lo señalan a estos estudiantes como flojos o problemáticos cuando realmente tienen una condición de salud mental.
And all too often they call our children lazy or problematic when really they have a mental health issue.
Solicitamos entrenamientos en las escuelas para mejorar el rendimiento estudiantil, académico y social.
We want training in the school so we can improve our kids' not only education but social well-being.
Con el fin de que los estudiantes puedan obtener buenos trabajos y ser independientes en la comunidad.
What is the goal? For our students to be independent in our community and to get good jobs.
I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, this is the first time I do this. Okay. Puedan obtener buenos trabajos y ser independientes con la comunidad. Gracias a todos los presentes por habernos dado la oportunidad de expresar nuestras necesidades y esperamos poder ver alguna mejoría, más colaboración con el sistema de salud mental y el sistema educativo.
I want to thank everyone for giving us the opportunity to express our needs, and we truly hope to be able to see some improvement and collaboration with the system, with the mental health care and the educational system.
Y nuevamente quiero agradecerles por su atención y Dios quiera podamos obtener nuestras necesidades para tener hijos con sueños realizados e independientes.
Once more, thank you for your attention, and we really hope that one day we can see our children's needs be realized and they can reach their dreams and become independent. Thank you so very much.
Hello, my name is Norma Guzman. I'm a client at Rio Hondo Mental Health Center. I've been there for many years, I just want to say that. I want to say to the panel, because I didn't get a card when I came in, they ran out. And one thing that I wanted to add was the parking at Rio Hondo Mental Health Center. A lot of clients want to come. And I was one of those clients that wouldn't come to the center sometimes because there was not enough available parking there for clients. A lot of the staff will, they take up the spaces because it's not a large parking space. But I know there's a lot next door and it's available. It's been available for a long time. So hopefully the county can consider taking up the space there or across the street. There's no train, there's train tracks, and it's available space there, so maybe we can consider that. Another thing I wanted to add was that, and thank Rio Hondo Mental Health Center, and the director is here, and Mr. Banuelos, because they give me the opportunity to be a peer specialist there in the lobby. I get to talk to the clients. Some severe cases have come in. I'm one of those past severe cases. Sorry. And it's good, it feels real good that I can be there as a peer with the people that are experiencing severe mental illness. I think we should do this in all the centers, have peers. I was able to experience this and do the work with all the training that I've received free from county services to all clients that want to become volunteers and do other things with their lives and higher goals. So I started off by doing the Just For Me, the portal charts, and I got to get to know a lot of people there, a lot of clients, and now they know me. And it feels good to see them come back, to follow up with them. And sometimes when I'm doing the Just For Me, I find out that they need other services, and I tell them, that's when I take the opportunity to tell them, they need to talk to their case manager. We're not just there for the doctors just to prescribe medication. We're there for employment services. That we're there for housing and everything else. So I think peers are very valuable if they're in the centers, just like the promotoras have the same goal that we do as peers. So I don't want to take up much time. My story here is my journey at Rio Hondo Mental Health Center. So I'll read it as quick as I can, but it is my story, not the story of all my bad experiences and how I was affected. And that's important, but I only use that when I'm with the peer that is experiencing certain, issues. That's when I get to share that. And that's the only value that it has to me, is to help others. So my journey at Rio Hondo Mental Health started around 2005 when I started experiencing different severe symptoms that were foreign to me. I couldn't relate to others because symptoms made me feel different, and I often thought that I was the only one going through this. I became so distant. I couldn't even walk. It was really bad. So I'd like to share my recovery story with you. and hoping that you can do the same, you know, and share yours at, you know, in a time when it's the proper time. When I first started treatment, I felt hopeless, disconnected, and sometimes even worse. I was failing in many areas in my life. I functioned like seriously, it was like a robot, immune to emotions. Through the years, I took the necessary steps to move forward, and I knew that I had to comply with the treatment plan to have a breakthrough so I can learn to live. That's important, to live, to feel alive, and to recover. Even though I struggled to accept outside help, I exposed my vulnerabilities to others. I'm joyful that I did. So it goes on some more, a little more, but the main thing is, clients, it's important for us that are in the center to let the clients know that it's important that they communicate with their caseworkers, what the needs are, and with the doctors of how they're feeling. If the medication isn't working, please let the doctors know that you want to feel a certain type of way. That's what I did, and somebody gave that advice to me, and that worked for me, was to engage with my doctor and let them know what the medication was making me feel. And so, thank you so much, and keep up with the good work.
Okay, so we're doing one more speech, correct? And after this speech, we'll go back to public comment. We are going to try to wrap this up. We have 30 minutes left. So after this speech, we have 2 questions on this side. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kim Goki, and I'm here to share my story. The story about challenges raising with a child with a dual diagnosis of autism and bipolar. My life has changed since the age of 2.5 when my son was diagnosed with PDD-NOS. My life changed from ever since. I stayed home to raise my son while my husband was our sole provider. I handled the kids, he went to work. I dealt with assessments, doctor appointments, IEPs, behavioralists, hospitalizations, social workers. Plus, I volunteered every day at my son's school to help with his outbursts. I had no support. I became depressed and isolated. I did everything to help my son. I sought help with Chad for his ADHD. I went to Autism Speaks for his autism. I went to NAMI for his bipolar. See, my son had a continuously changing diagnosis for years. He does not fit into a neat little category. I had to learn that symptoms overlap with several disorders. Today, my son is 22 and he's barely functioning. It breaks my heart. He is not happy and I can't do anything to change it. All I can do is give him my love and support. I recently became a parent partner to help other parents learn from my successes and my failures. I hope that there is less division amongst disorders and more supports that can be created for individuals who have dual diagnoses. It took me 5 rejections with Regional Center over the time period of 15 years. My son is currently in a home, a group home that's run through Regional Center, and I know he is safe. I do not wish this or any of the challenges I've had to face on any other family. So I'm just here to let you know that I have done everything and I continue to do more for other parents. My own therapy for myself and my family is to advocate for other parents to know they are not alone. We know that there's plenty of services for children, but there needs to be more services to support our parents who are raising these children. I was told by the time my son turned 12 years old and was in his first residential home that less than 10% of children after the age of 12 have less than 10% interaction with their family members. Parents burn out. They give up their children. They're at DCFS. They're facing the judges. Parents need more support. I let you know from my bottom of my heart that I love my son. but I hate his disorders. And I wish you all luck in advocating for your children. Thank you.
Thank you. So for the ending of this portion, we're going to continue to focus on the questions from the audience. So if you do have a question, if you can raise your hand and they'll bring over the microphone. Again, just a reminder, if we can keep those comments brief, no more than 2 minutes, so we can get as many going as possible.
My name is Minister Thomas D. Filippi Sr. I'm from the Antelope Valley, faith-based, but I'd like to say that I'm also an advocate of mental health. I'm also a former co-chair of the Older Adult Care Systems. I've just been around for a while, about 20 years now, with the Department of Mental Health, Los Angeles Department of Mental Health. And I just wanted to say I hear a lot about what's going on in the community, what everybody's saying is a big concern for them. First, I want to just say this before I get rolling into just one or two little things about myself, is that I appreciate what the Department of Mental Health is doing with the new healthcare system. It appears that you want to implement this into the schools. That's a good idea. You might want to even do that at a younger age. I don't know how that applies. I want to learn more about